Another 1 million Americans leave unemployment in a week as President Trump's predicted rapid recovery continues. Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about the latest UI numbers out of the Department of Labor unemployment insurance claims, and it shows that another 1 million people left unemployment benefits the week of September 5th, which is just an unbelievable number, and it shows you that the economy is recovering very, very rapidly. We've been seeing this go on for several months now. For the past 4 months, over 13 million jobs, 13.8 million jobs have been recovered into the U.S. economy. And when you think about it, 25 million jobs were lost in April, and we've recovered more than half of them in just 4 short months. In the Obama-Biden economy, it took 5 years to recover the jobs that were lost in the Great Recession and the financial crisis. So I think we're just in a much better position right now, and the numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they show that we're getting a V-shaped recovery here. Again, we went from 133.4 million jobs in April when the labor market bottomed, and we're up to 147.3 million. And you can see the V-shaped recovery that's forming right there. And it's really, really good news for the American people. It's probably pretty good news for President Trump in his re-election bid as well. So looking at some of these numbers, let's dig into the data here. The news release from the Department of Labor shows that the week of August 29th, there were 13.3 million Americans on unemployment. Now that's down to 12.3 million Americans on unemployment in just a week. At this rate, we can recover most of the jobs that were lost. We've already gotten more than half of them, but the great number of them, maybe by the end of the year, depending on how the vaccine goes, how the virus progresses. Right now, cases are continuing to stabilize. These are confirmed cases that you can see across all regions in the United States. And right now you're sitting at about 45,000 daily new cases per day, although you might expect those numbers to start ticking up as the cold and flu season progresses. Now, according to the Department of Labor, the greatest job gains or people coming off unemployment, 256,000 out of California, 55,000 out of Florida, 55,000 out of Illinois, 115,000 out of New York State. Michigan had 76,000 come off of unemployment, and the state of Ohio had 51,000. So again, that's all great news across the country. In red states and blue states, Texas had 57,000 people come off unemployment. And again, in these swing states, you're seeing, I think, a continued turnaround here. Pennsylvania, 38,000 Americans came off of unemployment. And those are just great numbers. And what it means with the million people is that when the September jobs numbers are reported the first week of October, the last monthly survey that will be reported by BLS before the election, it promises to be another huge number of jobs recovered. It could be a couple million or more. There's still a couple weeks of data to gather. I think that's going to turn up in the September numbers that are reported the first week of October. And this rapid recovery, almost nobody but President Trump was predicting, and it continues still. Here's what he promised on March 25th. At the height of the pandemic and the closures and everything that was going on, people were really, really worried about where the economy would be and what these job losses would amount to. It turns out 25 million jobs were going to be lost, but President Trump was confident, even as the jobs were being lost, that we were going to come back very, very quickly. Take a listen to this.
We want them to use the money for the companies and the planes or whatever they may be helping to get over this rough patch. And I don't think it's going to end up being such a rough patch. I think it's going to, when we open, especially if we can open it the sooner the better, it's going to open up like a rocket ship. I think it's going to go very good and very quickly.
There you go. It's going to go very good, very quickly, like a rocket ship. And it turns out President Trump was right. Those numbers are coming back very, very quickly. 13.8 million jobs. That's a record, by the way. In just 4 months, it's an unbelievable turnaround that almost nobody was predicting that would happen. And it happens as the cases continue to stabilize. So as long as the virus is under control, I think the economy is going to come back very, very quickly. That's what the numbers suggest. As cases decline, more people go back to work, more businesses reopen. And again, it took the Obama economy 5 years from labor markets bottoming at the end of 2009 all the way until 2014 when you would get those jobs back. But even when you were halfway through getting the jobs back, it took almost 2 years, 3 years. I think that this is where we are right now, where the economy is recovering much more rapidly. And I think it has a lot to do with the supports that Trump and the Congress put into place, including the payroll protection program. 5.2 million small businesses were saved. President Trump credits this program with the SBA small business loans, and they're forgivable loans. So if they go to payroll protection, they don't have to pay them back. This probably saved about 50 million jobs, according to the White House. And that's just an unbelievable number right there. But it just tells you how much worse the recession might have been if President Trump and Congress had not acted. And it was the Trump administration that insisted on that provision being included. And just think, just earlier this year, we were at 3.5% unemployment in February. That was a 50-year low. And it's sad to see it go away, but those numbers are coming back rapidly. We went from 14.7% unemployment, and now we're already down to 8.4%. We're back to the single digits there. And that's more great news for the American people. In addition, the Census Bureau has released the household median income for 2019 was increased by $4,400 to a record $68,700. And though you've never seen numbers that great, and I believe with President Trump's leadership in his second term, should he get reelected, I think that, you can see those numbers come back very, very quickly. We can get back to where we were. We can get back to the low unemployment number that we had. And we can get the incomes are probably taking a hit this year, but I think next year we can get those numbers back really, really quickly. President of Americans for Limited Government, Rick Manning, he reacted to the news, these good economic numbers of 2019, saying 2019 demonstrated that capitalism, cutting unnecessary regulations, lower taxes, and honest trade deals work together to decrease income inequality. While the impact of the China virus has set our economy back, there can be no doubt that President Trump has the right prescription for continuing the record rebound we are currently experiencing. Now, President Trump is promising that the economy will come back quickly, whereas former Vice President Joe Biden, he's promising the economy is not going to come back at all. If the virus comes back, Joe Biden's going to shut the economy down again. Take a listen to this.
Sworn in come January, and we have coronavirus and the flu combining, which many scientists have said is a real possibility. Would you be prepared to shut this country down again?
I would be prepared to do whatever it takes to save lives, because we cannot get the country moving until we control the virus. That is the fundamental flaw of this administration's thinking to begin with. In order to keep the country running and moving and the economy growing and people employed, you have to fix the virus. You have to deal with the virus.
So if the scientists say, shut it down?
I would shut it down. I would listen to the scientists.
There you go. He would shut it down again, even if there's ways where, the scientists are saying, Dr. Fauci says you don't have to shut it down again. You can actually get the economy safely reopened. You can get schools safely reopened, even before we get the vaccine, if we get a vaccine. And we should probably prepare for, plan B. What if we don't have a vaccine? So we're going to have to find a way to safely reopen either way, whether you have a vaccine or not. And I think, President Trump obviously has strong opinions about, reopening the country. I think that's what he's committed to. And he's staking his reelection on the idea that we should reopen. He reacted to Joe Biden on ABC News stating, quote, Joe Biden has said he would lock down the country again. That's crazy. We're having record job growth and a booming stock market, and Joe would end it all and close it all down. Ridiculous. And, who could blame President Trump for, kind of being upset about the idea of shutting down again? But I think one item to keep your eyes on is the pending Phase 4 legislation by Congress. The payroll protection plan, again, that could have saved 50 million jobs. It saved 5 million small businesses. And now Senate Republicans are offering legislation that would basically expand on this. It's called the HEALS Act, Health, Economic Assistance, Liability Protection, and Schools Act. So it's the idea that we're going to reopen America. We're going to do it safely, and we're going to provide a bit more economic support because people are still really hurting right now. And I get that. This would send more checks to taxpayers, extend the current unemployment benefits while removing perverse incentives for some workers to get paid more than they did at their jobs. It would also cut down on pandemic unemployment claims fraud. We saw a big uptick in pandemic unemployment assistance claims in the state of California. It went up by 4 million at some juncture between the end of July and midway through August. And this could be fraud. The state is saying that there might be fraud. And the Grassley bill by Senator Chuck Grassley out of Iowa, it's included in the HEALS Act that the Senate Republicans are pushing. And it would compel beneficiaries to document that they had a job. And that would mirror existing federal disaster unemployment assistance standards. Right now, there's just a self-certification check. And I think that was a mistake. But, we can fix it. The new program being offered by Senate Republicans and the bill that's being considered will address that. But so far, Nancy Pelosi, House Speaker, has blocked any new legislation. But I think after the series of Trump executive orders to provide more financial support for the American people, vulnerable members of the House are now getting involved, and they're telling Nancy Pelosi that she needs to get moving on this legislation. One example is Max Rose out of Staten Island, and he's telling Fox News that they need to, kind of get their acts together. The pressure is loud and forthright, and it is a bipartisan nature, Rose told Fox News, of the urging of both GOP and Democratic leadership to move, quote, a real bill. Because of that pressure is reflective of where the American people are. They are sick and tired of the politics. To the leadership, we said this very simple message: it's time for you to stop playing games. Let's stop the charade. Let's stop this stupidity. Let's put the country first. And, he has a bill that I think has more, dollar amount attached to it, the $2 trillion so-called compromise legislation. But I think this rings loud and clear. Vulnerable Democrats are being hurt by Pelosi blocking this legislation, and they're afraid they're going to lose their seats. And so they're trying to salvage their political careers because they think that the obstruction, kind of charge could cost Democrats the House majority, which would be unbelievable. It'd be the first time a president running for re-election regained a House majority since 1948. And I think that's, it just tells you that many Americans are still hurting from the lockdowns, and time could be running out for Pelosi to preserve her House majority. And I'll leave you with the close here. I think that this is, there's a lot going on here. The jobs are coming back very, very quickly. Maybe that limits how much money you need to spend. The Senate bill, that would only spend about $1 trillion. The Pelosi, she had a $3 trillion. Rose, he has $2 trillion. But if you're going to get all these jobs back that quickly, you're more than halfway through the recovery, then maybe you don't need to spend as much money, and you just focus on the things that you do need to spend money on, like reopening the schools, preserving the small businesses that are still struggling right now, and any additional unemployment benefits that need to go out, and supporting American households. They want to send more checks. Okay. When most Americans were afraid about what the pandemic might mean, Democrats were urging an economic shutdown. President Trump was taking aggressive action to save as many lives as possible and to plan ahead to enable the economy to safely reopen with millions of jobs now recovered. At the end of the day, the American people evaluate an incumbent administration by their pocketbook, and this is one area where President Trump does indeed have a great story to tell voters. Stay tuned. That's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a good day.